Have you ever had someone come up to you and say, wow, that was amazing. How did you do that? And you said to them, or maybe you said to yourself afterwards, it was no big deal. Doesn't everybody do that? And the truth is, they don't. Hi, Nicole Jansen here, and thank you for being on this journey with me. Today, we are going to talk about what makes you unique. I believe that we all have unique gifts and unique talents. That is our unique way of making a difference in the world. And this is specifically related to what is your purpose. Oftentimes people will ask and they'll say, what's my purpose? What am I here for? And I believe that we all have the same common purpose, which is to love God and to love one another. The real question is, how do we live that out in our day-to-day life in our own unique way? So in this video, I'm actually going to share with you the 5 ways that you are unique and how you are shaped. So this is the acronym we're going to go through, is the acronym SHAPE. And I want to thank Eric Ries, who I learned this from, because like so many things, I've learned so much from other people, over the years, that it's just been amazing. And so then I've applied it to my business and when I work with clients. And so in this particular case, I actually learned this from a gentleman by the name of Eric Ries. He wrote a book called SHAPE many years ago. I read it, and it made a huge difference for me, bringing clarity to myself and how I was shaped to make a difference. And now I've used it with literally hundreds of people, probably thousands of people over the years around the world. So it's super cool. I'm excited to share it with you here. And so let's get right into it. Now, if you don't have a pen, I would encourage you to go get a pen and paper or somewhere you can write this down and start answering. As I'm going to ask you questions, you're going to start answering the questions for yourself, okay? Now, the first one is in this SHAPE, and these are the 5 ways that you are uniquely shaped for making a difference, okay? And this relates to your success, because with success, we all, again, it looks different to everybody, right? Your success will be influenced by your SHAPE. It's what's important to you, and we're going to get into that here. Now, the first way is your spiritual gifts. Now, you may be saying, Nicole, I'm not a spiritual person. I'm not really into all that woo-woo stuff. And that is not what I'm talking about here, okay? But there are certain things that you've been doing your whole life. So when you were a little kid, you were doing these things. Nobody had to tell you how to do them. Nobody had to, make it a chore for you. You just did them naturally. There's things that showed up. These are what I call your spiritual gifts. Okay, so an example. What could be a spiritual gift? A spiritual gift could be, maybe you have the gift of encouragement. When you were a kid, were you somebody that, even just from a little child and then growing up, of course, into your adulthood, that you were somebody that was always encouraging others? Was that you? Or maybe you were the one who was the leader, that, you were the one that people always looked to for direction. Maybe you were in the schoolyard and you were naturally doing that, or with your siblings, right? Or maybe it's the gift of learning, and you were just fascinated by learning things, and so you have this gift of learning, and maybe even the gift of teaching that goes with it. You love to teach things to other people. These are spiritual gifts. These are things that are born into your DNA. They come naturally to you. These are the things that are so natural that you probably take for granted because you've been doing them your whole life. So another one could be the gift of hospitality. Maybe you enjoy entertaining, and you brought your little friends over when you were a kid, and you would play house and you would do these fun things, and you've been doing that now as an adult. You love having dinner parties and having people over, and entertaining or caring for them. Maybe the gift of care, maybe the gift of service. These are all spiritual gifts. The gift of wisdom, the gift of discernment is another spiritual gift that you might have. Maybe you like to relate to people, and you're always that person who can relate to people quickly, or maybe you're a great listener. Maybe you're also a great communicator, and you love to stand up and share with others. What are those things that are, maybe you're a great organizer. Your parents didn't have to say, go clean your room or organize your room. You just naturally did that because you liked it that way. Or you would organize things, and maybe with your, at school, all your materials and your supplies, you would organize them in a certain way. Or maybe you like to draw, the gift of the arts, and you love to draw, or you love to sing, or you love to dance, or you love sports. These are all things that are gifts, that are natural, that are core to you. So what are they for you? Whatever they are, whatever comes up, whatever you think about, just write those things down, okay? Those are your spiritual gifts. Now, the cool thing about this, as we go through it, you're going to start to see patterns. It's really, really cool. So stick with me on this. Now, the heart. What is your heart? What are you passionate about? You know, what is it that you could do? Maybe it's an activity that you could do all day, every day, and not get bored of it. What is it that makes you feel the most alive, right? What is it that maybe you're passionate about? Maybe there's a cause that you're passionate about, or you know, what stirs your soul? What stirs your soul? So ask yourself that right now, and then write down what comes up, okay? The other side of heart is what angers you. What upsets you? When you see something on the news, or you see a commercial, and you know, and you're just like, that's not right, it shouldn't happen that way, and why are they doing that? Whether it's, you know, maybe it's oppression against a certain group of people, or maybe it's against animals, or maybe it's the environment, and you're saying it's wrong, it shouldn't be that way. And it's not just that it's wrong, but it's something that you say, you know what, I gotta do something about that. But maybe you haven't had the time, maybe you haven't had the resources, and that little voice in your head is saying, oh, you know, you don't have time for this right now. Focus at where it's important right now, and then later you can get back to that. Well, whatever that is, don't judge it, just write it down. Write it down. That is a clue into what your heart is. What do you love to do? What are you passionate about? And what angers you and upsets you and bugs you? It's that problem that you see in the world. It's injustice, and it's poverty, it's whatever, you know, that is important to you. And that is a clue into what your heart is. Okay. The A stands for your abilities. Your abilities. Now, what's different from spiritual gifts and abilities? Well, abilities are things that you have learned along the way. You went to school. You learned certain activities. Maybe you learned teamwork. Maybe you learned management. Maybe you went in your job, you became promoted to a manager, and you've done so well. But these are things that maybe you built upon some spiritual gifts there, but you also developed these abilities. And these are things that you've learned. Maybe you got educated in a certain area, you know, and so you've got certain abilities that not everybody has. Bottom line, right? So write down, what are those abilities that you have? The ability to coach, the ability to manage, the ability to lead, business skills that you've developed along the way, relationship skills, those types of things, okay? So those are your abilities. Now, the P is one area which is big favorite for me, and that is your personality. It's your personality. Now, when we talk about personality, personality is like your behavioral preferences. You know how we were talking about in the last video, your success comes from your actions comes from your mindset, and your mindset is your talents and abilities, like we were talking about, is one aspect of it, and it's also your personality. And then the other one, of course, is beliefs, which we got into in more detail. But when you're talking about your personality colors everything. It colors how you communicate. It colors how you show up. It colors the types of environments you like to work in, where you thrive, where you don't. Some people like routine. Some people do not like routine. Some people like a challenge. Some people don't like a challenge. Some people like being with people and having fun and being social, and some people would be, prefer to just be behind the scenes, and they don't want to be front stage. They want to be backstage. So for the purposes of this exercise, there's lots of personality assessments out there where you can discover in more detail. I actually am certified with an organization called Personality Insights, and so I use a tool called DISC, and we'll get into that a little bit more later, but you know, it's a really great tool to understanding what is your personality. But for the purposes of discovering your shape for today, all I'm going to encourage you to do is answer 2 questions for yourself. 2 questions. The first question is, am I more outgoing? Actually, I'll even draw this for you here. It's visually helpful, is am I more outgoing or am I more reserved? The next question is, and by the way, when you're talking about outgoing or reserved, it could be varying degrees of intensity. Maybe you're really outgoing, or maybe you're really reserved, or maybe just a little more outgoing than you are reserved. And of course, when you have different environments and different situations, you may feel yourself being more outgoing, where maybe you're around people that you're familiar with, and less outgoing when you're around strangers. But for the most part, if you look at your life, how you naturally show up, outgoing people tend to be those people that are just always ready to go. They love to do, and they love to take action, and they love to move fast. They love to move fast, they like to think fast, they talk faster a lot of times. And then the reserved people are more, they're kind of like, they hold back a little bit. They hang back a little bit. I want to test the waters first. I'm not just going to jump in. I want to kind of see how things are going to go first. They're also more thoughtful in the sense that they think things through a little bit more slowly. Both are thoughtful, of course, but they're thinking a little bit more slowly. Outgoing people tend to make decisions pretty quickly. Reserved people tend to take a little bit more time, okay, because they're just processing it differently. Not good or bad, right or wrong, it's just different. And in society, we need all of these personality types to be able to have variety and to be able to get everything done, because those people who like routine, you know, that they bring something to the tables and they help to create structure. For the people that don't like structure, or the people that, I shouldn't say, or that are not good with structure, but that structure is important. So we're talking about having success, turning your purpose into profits. There's certain elements. You got to have a certain amount of structure. You got to have a certain amount of systems in place, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But so that's why it's important to have all of these personality types present. Okay, so outgoing and reserved. The other question to ask yourself is, am I more task-oriented or am I more people-oriented? So a task-oriented person is somebody that you go on vacation and you know, you've got this list of things to do. You're like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do that. You know, it's like you wake up in the morning and you're ready to go. A people-oriented person isn't thinking about the checklist of what we're going to do. They're thinking more about who are they getting to hang out with. If they're hanging, hey, as long as we're together, I'm having fun. And that's a people-oriented person. Doesn't matter what we're doing, as long as I'm with you, as long as we're meeting really interesting people, I'm happy. A task-oriented person, what this means is that they're actually prioritizing tasks as a first priority. People-oriented is because they're prioritizing people first. This is really, really important to know. In fact, I'm going to get into this in more detail, this personality, in the last video, and you'll see as I go through it, and we'll expand on that. Super fascinating, so definitely don't miss that video, because it's going to be well worth it. And there's so many ahas. I do these workshops, and people love this because it's really discovering. It's like, wow, that's why I do what I do, and that's why other people do what they do, and that's not a thing, that's not bad, it's just different. And how does that work? So, but for the purposes of today, it's just ask yourself, am I more outgoing or am I more reserved? Am I more people-oriented or am I more task-oriented? How do I show up in the world? How do I communicate based on that? Right? How do I relax from stress? What do I find exciting and interesting to do, and what do I find not so interesting as it relates to that? All right, the last one in the S.H.A.P.E is where you actually, it's not just one experience, it's many. It's where you truly differentiate yourself from everybody else. All of these, of course, these are unique, and this is your 5 unique ways, right, that you are shaped for making a difference. When we talk about experiences, there's nobody that's had the exact same set of experiences. You may have some common experiences with other people, but nobody has the exact same set of life experiences that you have. And that's beautiful, it's awesome. Now, there are some experiences that are wonderful, joyful, happy experiences, and there are some experiences that are painful experiences. Now, in my own experience, I have learned more actually from my painful experiences than my happy, joyful experiences. It's just, I don't know, because I in that moment, of course, when you're in this, you've experienced this painful situation, it's like it forces you to stop and to check in with yourself. At least it does for me. And so it's like, 'cause I don't want to feel that anymore. I don't want to feel that again. And so what can I learn from this that I can move forward and avoid having this happen again? What also comes out when you're talking about life experiences and painful experiences especially, is that sometimes that's where people's passion is birthed from that. It kind of comes back to when we're talking about your heart and the things that anger you. It's like, I experienced this and I don't want anybody else to experience this ever, ever, ever again. And so I'm going to put things in place, or I'm going to create an organization to help these people avoid that, or I'm going to teach people, or right? I'm going to do something about that. And that's why it's such an important piece in discovering your purpose. And you're going to start to see themes. As you're writing all these things down, you're going to start to see themes and patterns and repeating themes. And I would encourage you to circle them. If you're an artist and you like to draw this out, you can write this out, you can draw it out, you can paint it out, you can do whatever you want. The idea is that when you see these pieces of this puzzle, this beautiful puzzle or masterpiece, you start to say, oh wow, this is so fascinating. I did this for myself many years ago, and what came out of it was my passion. I drilled down to what is my real passion in life. And then what I did is I built a whole business around it. I built a whole lifestyle around the things that were passionate to me, that I was passionate about, and those things that I was really great at. Those things that were my giftings, my strengths. So I took my strengths, my passion, my experience, and I put it together and I built my company, Discover the Edge. And that's why I do what I do today. And so it's so important. If we're talking about going from purpose to profits, we first got to figure out, what's your purpose? You may already know, but if you don't, this is an opportunity to get really clear on it. Maybe even if you do know, this gives you some further clarity as to how you can, it creates a much richer experience of an awareness of understanding it. Because once you recognize it, then you can actually, like the reticular activating system we were talking about before in the last video, is then you can start to create the space for greater opportunities to come your way, people to come your way, milestones on this journey that we're on to come faster and to come your way. And you're saying, wow, I didn't see that before. I didn't notice. Look at all this opportunity that's around me. It's so super awesome. Okay, so if you haven't already done so, take a few minutes, write that down, take a journal, go somewhere quiet and just check in with yourself and check in with God and saying, God, how did you created me? So how did you create me? Those experiences that I've had in my life, what can I learn from them? What did they teach me? I believe that God doesn't waste any experience. He especially doesn't waste the painful experiences that we have. So I'd encourage you to do that today. You're going to find out so many fascinating things about yourself, new distinctions and awarenesses about who you are and how you're uniquely shaped for making a difference in the world. Well, that's it for this video. I look forward to the next video and getting into that with you, where we start to talk about how do you get past those roadblocks, those speed bumps, those pothills along life's journey. Speaking of experiences, how do you deal with those specifically? So we'll get into that in the next video, and I look forward to seeing you there.